The soft murmur of jazz drifted through the corner diner, forks clinking, coffee steaming, laughter spilling from the booth. Rachel Carter, 31, sat there glowing under the warm light. Her cream blazer crisp, gold earrings shimmering, hair brushed like she'd stepped out of a commercial. Across from her sat me, Emily Carter, 27, a teacher, in a cardigan that had seen better days. My smile polite, my hands small and tired. Mom leaned forward, eyes sparkling. "You're such a blessing, Rachel. We don't know what we'd do without you." I froze. My fork hovered halfway to my plate. Rachel just smiled, that perfect, practiced, camera-ready smile, and poured Dad another cup of coffee like she'd earned it. Dad chuckled softly. "Your mother's right, sweetheart. You've done so much for us." I bit the inside of my cheek. The words burned. It wasn't her I wanted to say. It was me. But silence is what I'd learned to live with. 3 years of wiring money every month, paying hospital bills no one asked about. 3 years of watching my sister take the praise. The meal ended. They laughed their way out the door. And I walked alone under the Portland rain. My little apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses on your chest. I sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, staring at my bank balance. The number blinking low, painfully low. Rent due. Groceries next week. Nothing left. Then, a knock. When I opened the door, he was there. Tall, slightly unshaven. Gray eyes kind but tired, like someone who'd seen both beauty and struggle. "Hey," he said, lifting an extension cord with a sheepish grin. "I'm Ethan Miller. Just moved in downstairs. My lamp's refusing to work. Any chance you've got one of these?" I nodded, wordless for a moment, then handed it over. "Teacher, right?" he asked, glancing at my stack of graded papers. "Yeah," I said quietly. "3rd grade." He smiled. "Braver than me. I used to volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. Kids are tougher than most adults." I laughed. A small sound, but it felt freeing. We talked a while about rain, about Portland traffic, about how life feels lighter when someone simply listens. When he left, I realized I was smiling again. Really smiling. Later, lying on my couch, I scrolled through Rachel's newest post. Her champagne glass raised high, captioned, "Family means everything." My chest tightened. I turned off the screen, whispering to the dark, "Maybe one day, they'll see who really keeps this family standing." Outside, rain tapped gently on the window, steady, constant, like a quiet promise that change was finally on its way. Morning light crept through the blinds, thin and tired, just like me. The coffee pot hissed, filling the room with the smell of burnt hope. I sat at the kitchen table, bills scattered like fallen leaves, rent, utilities, medical payments, all with my name on them. My eyes drifted to the last number on my account balance. $216. That was all. 3 years of giving, 3 years of scraping by, 3 years of pretending it didn't matter that Rachel got the praise while I got the pain. But that morning, something in me snapped. I stared at the screen, then whispered, "No more." No announcement, no grand speech, just silence. I didn't send the next payment. For the first time, I kept my money. I paid my rent. I bought myself a small bag of groceries, fresh apples, real coffee, not the instant kind. It felt almost sinful. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. No calls, no texts. Part of me wondered if maybe, just maybe, they'd figured it out, that Rachel wasn't the one paying all along. Then the phone rang. "Sweetheart." Mom's voice filled the line, sharp with worry. "The hospital called. They said your dad's insurance bill wasn't paid this month. I don't understand. Rachel's always on top of these things." My hand trembled. I pressed the phone closer, forcing my tone calm. "Maybe you should ask Rachel about it," I said softly. A pause. Then a sigh. "I will." When the call ended, I sat there, frozen, heart pounding. Part of me felt relief. Another part, guilt. Years of being the caretaker don't fade overnight. That evening, I ran into Ethan outside. He was sketching the old oak tree in front of the apartment complex. Messy hair, faded jeans, a streak of graphite across his thumb. He looked up, smiling. "You look like someone who just walked away from something heavy." I laughed under my breath. "You could say that." He closed his notebook, stood up. "Walking away isn't failure, Emily. Sometimes it's survival." His words lingered long after he left. Days passed. Rachel kept posting. Rooftop dinners, new heels, sunsets captioned, "Grateful for family." I stared at those photos, wondering how she could sleep at night while Mom and Dad believed her every word. By the third week, things got worse. Mom called again, panic now in her tone. "Emily, your father's treatment might be delayed. Rachel said her bank app glitched, but this is the second notice." I closed my eyes. The guilt twisted deep. "I'm sure she'll fix it," I whispered. "She always does." When I hung up, my reflection stared back from the dark window. Pale, tired, angry. Not at them. At me. Because I'd let it happen. I'd built this silence with my own hands. That night I couldn't sleep. The rain tapped against the glass like it wanted in. I made tea, sat by the window, and whispered to the dark, "If they ever find out the truth, I don't even know what will hurt more, that she lied, or that they believed her." Then, a text from Ethan. "I'm working late, but if you ever need to talk, my door's open." For a long moment, I just stared at the screen. Maybe this was what hope looked like. Small, quiet, patient. I set down the phone, wrapped myself in a blanket, and let the storm outside match the one inside me. Somewhere between guilt and exhaustion, I made a promise to myself. The next time someone takes my voice, I'll speak, even if it shakes. Sunday evening. The air smelled like rain and roasted chicken. Mom's voice over the phone had sounded sweet, too sweet, when she said, "Family dinner, 7 sharp. We need to talk things through." I knew what that meant. Rachel had probably spun another story, and I was walking straight into it. When I arrived, the house looked exactly as I remembered. Framed photos of Rachel's college graduation on every wall, her smiling face in every corner. The table was set perfectly, silverware glinting beneath the chandelier. Rachel sat at the far end, radiant in a maroon dress, glass of wine in hand, the golden child in her element. Mom hovered near the oven in her floral apron, and Dad was quiet as always, fiddling with his napkin. "Emily," Mom said, her tone firm but polite, "we're just waiting for you to join us." I sat down across from Rachel. She didn't meet my eyes, just kept swirling her wine like she had better things to do. Dinner began with small talk. Rachel shared a story about her busy week at work, about a campaign she'd managed, about how exhausting it was keeping up with so many responsibilities. I almost laughed. Instead, I focused on cutting my food, pretending not to hear. Halfway through, Dad cleared his throat. "About those hospital payments," he said carefully, eyes flicking toward Rachel. "We've been getting calls again. Is everything all right with your account?" Rachel blinked, lips parting slightly. "Oh, that? Just a minor issue. The app was down. I'll handle it." Mom quickly jumped in, voice sharp as a blade. "She's doing her best, Robert. Stop grilling her." Then she turned to me. "Maybe you could help this time, Emily. You don't do much for us as it is." The fork slipped from my fingers, clattering against the plate. The words hit harder than I expected. Rachel finally looked up, her expression calm, detached, practiced. Something inside me cracked. Years of silence, of swallowing hurt, all rushed up at once. My hands trembled, but my voice was steady. "That's not true, Mom," I said quietly. "I've been helping. For 3 years. I'm the one who's been paying those bills. The room froze. Mom stared at me, blinking like she hadn't heard right. Then, a scoff. Don't be ridiculous, Emily. Rachel's the one who's been supporting us. Why would you say something like that? My pulse pounded in my ears. Because it's the truth. Every month I've been sending money from my account. Rent checks, hospital fees, prescriptions. Rachel hasn't paid a thing. Rachel's smile faltered for the first time. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Dad's eyes darted between us. Wait, are you saying— Yes, I cut in. I stopped paying recently, and that's why the bills are late, because I couldn't keep doing it, not while she kept taking the credit. Rachel slammed her hand on the table. You're insane, Emily! Why are you making this up? Her voice shook just enough to sound convincing. You think I'd lie about helping Mom and Dad? You're just bitter because they appreciate what I do. I stared at her, heart pounding. Then prove it. Show them your payments. I have my bank records, every one of them. Her eyes darted to Mom, desperate. You see? She's trying to make me look bad again. But the mask was cracking. Her voice wavered. Dad looked uncertain now. Mom just shook her head, refusing to believe it. Enough, I whispered. You can keep pretending, Rachel. But I'm done. I won't sit here and let you rewrite my life anymore. I stood, chair scraping the floor, the sound cutting through the tense air like thunder. Rachel's eyes burned into mine, anger, fear, guilt, all tangled together. No one said a word as I grabbed my coat. My hands trembled, but my heart— it felt strangely light. Outside, the night air hit my face, cold, sharp, real. I walked toward my car, my breath visible in the chill. Behind me, through the dining room window, I saw the perfect picture shatter. For the first time in years, I wasn't invisible anymore. The days after that dinner felt like walking through fog, quiet, cold, and endless. No calls, no messages, just silence thick enough to choke on. I went to work, smiled at my students, taught math and art, and pretended my life hadn't cracked open in front of everyone I loved. But every night when I got home, the ache returned, the kind that sits behind your ribs and refuses to leave. Rachel hadn't called, not once. Mom sent one text. We'll talk when you calm down. That was it. I stared at those 6 words for a long time before deleting them. Calm down. The irony made me laugh out loud, a sharp, broken sound. Weeks passed. The rain came heavier. Portland always felt gray in March, but this year it was darker somehow. I started walking home from school instead of taking the bus, just to clear my head. The cold air helped. Sometimes I'd pass Ethan outside the coffee shop down the street, his hair messy from the wind, sketchbook open, headphones in. He'd always smile when he saw me, that easy kind of smile that didn't ask for anything. One evening, I found him leaning against his old truck, wiping rain from the windshield. Hey, stranger, he said, eyes warm. Haven't seen you in a bit. Just been surviving, I murmured. He handed me a coffee cup. Extra caramel. You looked like you needed it. We sat in the truck for a while, rain drumming on the roof. I told him everything, the dinner, the silence, the guilt. When I finished, he didn't say much. He just nodded and said softly, You can't fix people who don't want to see the truth, Emily. You just have to keep being yours. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. A few days later, something unexpected happened. My mom showed up at the elementary school unannounced. She stood in the hallway, clutching her purse, her face pale. When she saw me, her eyes softened. Just a little. Emily, she began, can we talk? We went into the empty art room. She hesitated before speaking. I visited the hospital today. I wanted to see if they'd spoken to Rachel about the payments. She paused. They showed me the account name. Her eyes filled with tears. It was yours. For a moment I couldn't breathe. All the nights I'd stayed up worrying, All the hours I'd worked late to make those payments. Finally, someone saw it. I didn't want to embarrass her, I said quietly. Mom wiped at her face, shaking her head. I can't believe it. I thought she was helping us. I thought... Her voice cracked. I thought you were just jealous. She reached for my hand. It trembled. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Before I could respond, her phone buzzed. She frowned, checking the screen. Rachel. She's been calling me nonstop, Mom said softly. I think things are not going well for her. The next week, word started to spread. Rachel had missed car payments, canceled her gym membership, even moved out of her fancy downtown apartment. Her social media turned quiet. No rooftop cocktails, no perfect smiles, just silence. Meanwhile, my life shifted in small but beautiful ways. Ethan and I started spending more time together, walking along the river, grabbing late-night sandwiches, laughing about silly things. He never asked about Rachel, never pushed. He just listened. One Saturday morning, we volunteered at a children's hospital, painting murals in the playroom. I hadn't painted in years, but when a little girl handed me a brush and asked, "Can you draw a sun for me?" I smiled. For the first time, I realized the world didn't need to see me the way my family did. I could be more than the forgotten sister. That afternoon, I saw Mom standing near the door, watching quietly as I worked. She didn't interrupt, just smiled through her tears. When I looked up, she mouthed, "I'm proud of you." For once, I believed her. The invitation came quietly, just a text from Mom. Family gathering this Sunday. Please come. No exclamation points, no guilt, just words that felt heavier than they looked. I almost didn't go, but something in me wanted to see how it would all end. When I arrived, the Carter house looked smaller than I remembered. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the weight of truth that had finally settled into its walls. Inside, Mom stood near the fireplace, her eyes tired but soft. Dad sat on the couch, hands clasped, staring at the floor. And then there was Rachel, shoulders slumped, hair unstyled, wearing a plain gray sweater instead of her usual perfection. She looked human for once. "Emily," Mom whispered, "thank you for coming." I nodded, my voice low. "You said you wanted to talk?" Rachel stood, her hands trembling. "Yeah," she said quietly, avoiding my gaze. "I owe you a lot more than that." For a long time, no one spoke. The only sound was the old clock ticking above the mantel. Then Rachel took a breath that seemed to scrape her throat raw. "I lied," she said simply. "For years, you were the one paying for everything, and I let them believe it was me." Her voice broke halfway through the sentence. "I thought I deserved their love. I thought if I looked perfect long enough, maybe I'd actually be worth something. But all I did was hurt you." Mom pressed a trembling hand to her lips. Dad leaned forward, his voice rough. "We were wrong, Emily. We failed you. For the first time in a long time, I didn't cry. I just listened." "I'm sorry," Rachel said again, tears falling freely now. "You don't ever have to forgive me, but I needed you to know I finally told the truth." I looked at her. My sister, the girl who once braided my hair before school, the woman who'd taken everything I gave and wrapped it in her name. And somehow, I didn't feel anger anymore, just release. "You were scared," I said softly. "You thought love had to be earned. I did too. For a long time." She looked up, eyes wide and red. "But I forgive you," I whispered. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." Mom broke down crying, pulling me into her arms. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart. You've always been the strong one. We just didn't see it." I smiled faintly. "You see it now. That's enough." The conversation drifted into apologies and laughter that felt shaky, but real. It didn't fix everything, but it was a start. Afterward, I stepped outside. The air was cool, the sky beginning to warm with the first blush of dawn. Ethan's car pulled into the driveway. He got out, holding 2 cups of coffee and that familiar, gentle smile. "Survived the family summit?" he teased. "Barely," I said, laughing softly. "But it's over, finally." We walked down to the old wooden bridge at the end of the street. The sun was rising, spilling gold across the river. Ethan handed me my coffee, then leaned on the railing beside me. "You know," he said quietly, "sometimes peace doesn't come when everyone says sorry. It comes when you finally stop carrying the weight." I turned to look at him, at the man who'd seen me when no one else had. He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You did it, Emily. You let go." For a long while we stood there. No words, just light, wind, and the sound of water moving forward. I took a deep breath, the kind that fills your lungs all the way down. "You were right," I said softly. Walking away wasn't failure. It was freedom. The sun rose higher, the city waking around us. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost, only what I'd finally found, myself.